Lonely Boy mistakenly teleports to another world and gets the most epic skill, healing. In high school, we hear the usual gossip making its round about a duo who are apparently a match made in heaven. The hype behind their presumed relationship is so large that even the classroom simps have to admit defeat. We finally get to see the famed pair and are introduced to the student council president, Inokami, who is walking confidently down the hall and proclaiming her plans to maintain order in the school, while the Beka simp Kazuki walks behind her, excited that he gets to be so close to a girl. But even if he is a simp, he's at least got hoes and a pretty face. But the same can't be said for Usato, who is such an ugly loser that he got the opening spotlight stolen from him in his own anime. He is just your average high school boy with zero friends and zero hoes, so the only thing of interest that happens to him all day is finding a fallen nest of baby birds. He may be an outcast, but he is at least a kind one, so he helps the birds back into their nest and says they can pay him back later if they want to. But then he realizes that he is talking to a bunch of baby birds and leaves before he gets any weirder. He envies all the other impressive high school students and wishes he could be like them as well, or at least get some friends so he doesn't have to talk to birds all the time. Usato decides it's time for him to go home, but his luck keeps on getting worse as when he goes to his locker, he finds that someone has taken his umbrella. He spots another one over by the wall, and for a moment he thinks about just snagging it and leaving its owner stuck here, just like he is. But then again, so far being kind is the only remarkable trait he has, so he decides that he will just wait out the storm instead, as he takes his seat and accepts his fate of being stuck here. He sighs that it would be so much easier for him here if he could just use magic to just blow the rain away, but things don't work out so conveniently for him. And the rain must have taken his comments personally because several hours later, it is still pouring strong and is even raining slightly more as a little FU to Usato. While he is wondering what he is going to do, he hears a voice come around the corner and finds Inokami is still in school. Normally, everyone would have left school hours ago, so she asks what he is still doing here. But this is the first time he has ever been this close to, let alone had a conversation with a girl, so he is stumbling over his words like an idiot. She manages to piece his half sentences together and realizes that he must be stuck here because he doesn't have an umbrella. However, it is almost the school's lockup time, so the gates are going to be shut soon. Usato takes the hint and decides to just run through the rain, even though it definitely means he will get soaked. But Inokami stops him because it wouldn't be right for the student council president to let a student get himself drenched while she has an umbrella in her hand. But just as Usato was about to get the chance to share an umbrella with Inokami, Kazuki shows up and offers Usato his spare umbrella, which he keeps in his bag for occasions just like this. This move successfully cucked Usato and dashed any dreams of physical contact with Inokami, but speaking of which, Inokami asks if Kazuki knows Usato since he is being very friendly with him. They are apparently in the same class, but remember, Usato's friend count is a total of 0, so Kazuki must have really put some effort into learning all of his classmates' names. This is the first act of kindness that Usato has ever experienced, so even though he didn't get alone time with Inokami, it seems that he has managed to raise his friend count to 1. He is still a bit awkward, but Kazuki tells him there is no need to be so stuffed around each other since they are classmates, and seeing that Kazuki has become friends with him, Inokami gets in on the action, and they are now a trio of students. It looks like luck is finally on Usato's side as he went from holeless and friendless to just holeless. He gets to walk home with the popular kids, something all the other students would kill to be able to do, so he is finally doing something interesting. On the walk home, Usato talks about how he had thought Kazuki would be more of a ladies' man than he is since he is always seen talking with the girls in class, but the hoes just flock to him. There's nothing he can do about being good looking. Usato also thought Inokami would be far more unapproachable than she actually was since she is revered as a goddess by all the students. If she so much as sneezed in class, her snot would be bottled up and sold on eBay for $1,000. So getting to talk to her like this is still jarring to him. Just to get out of the way, Usato asks if they happen to actually be dating like the rumors say, but they deny it and say they are just around each other a lot, so it is natural that those kind of rumors would be spread. With that cleared up, Inokami asks Usato if he has any plans for the future or anything, but he hadn't really thought about it up till now. Kazuki finds it a little weird since she also asked him that question a while ago as well, but she brushes it off as just curiosity since she has no real hopes for her future. Basically, anything she tries ends in success without much effort, so she lacks any real ambition for her future and doesn't feel like she fits in here. She is literally suffering from success. While Usato has never really tasted success, he definitely knows what it feels like to not fit in, so maybe they are not so different. The three continue to walk when Kazuki and Inokami stops in their tracks because they claim to have just heard something that sounded a lot like church bells just now. They can hear as clear as day, but Usato doesn't hear anything because he's being sidelined by the isekai forces. He gets closer to them to see if they are alright, and thus it gets pulled into the isekai portal, even though he was never actually meant to be there. The magic circle beneath their feet is about to teleport them, and they have a wide range of reactions from Kazuki's confusion to Inokami's utter excitement, and Usato who gets cut off in the middle of what he was saying. Usato later opens his eyes to find himself in a palace before a king. After the initial shock of the situation, he asks Kazuki what is going on and why they are in such a strange place. But while their brains are still processing, Inokami is practically drooling from excitement as she realizes this is a fantasy and she's loving it. The king notices that they have all finally awoken, so he starts talking, but gets cut off by Kazuki, who rightfully wants to know what is going on here. A guard tells Kazuki that he is being impertinent towards the king, but the king is fine with it since he did just basically kidnap a bunch of kids. He apologizes to them, but asks that they at least hear him out before they make their judgments on what to do from here. He introduces himself as King Lloyd of the Linger Kingdom, and Inokami is only getting more excited as he talks. He goes on to explain that they were summoned to his kingdom as heroes, and Inokami has a minigasm on the floor from the sheer excitement. The king of demons had laid siege to his kingdom, and with a combined effort, they were successfully able to repel him for now. But since the demon lord is surely strengthening his army right now, they probably won't be so lucky next time. Thus, they decided it might be necessary to take drastic measures and turn to the forbidden spells of ages past that allowed them to summon heroes into this world with the potential to oppose the demon lord. That is a very plausible story, but Kazuki is missing the part where that became his problem. He was just living his life a moment ago, but now he's being asked to fight some demon lord and he's supposed to just be okay with it. He had a good life and a family that he loves, so he wants to be sent back to his world. But the king apologizes again and tells him that the summoning spell only works in one direction, so it isn't possible to send them back right now. This isn't good enough for Kazuki, who gets even angrier. But then he gets reminded that he is surrounded by armed guards who serve the king, so picking a fight here won't get him anywhere. The king gets down from his throne and walks up to 3 before kneeling before them. He swears that he will find a way to send them back to their original world in the near future. But in the meantime, he asks that they lend him their power to help save his kingdom and its people. Inokami calms her excited for a bit and asks the king why he keeps referring to them as heroes, even though he has no information on them, so he has his assistant, Welsi, explain. The Heroes Summoning Magic Circle contains a spell that seeks out individuals who could be potential heroes, which is why they would hear a bell sound before they are summoned. But that just means that while Inokami and Kazuki were the intended target, Usato just got dragged along for the ride and isn't a potential hero. We cut to the magic aptitude evaluation that they will be taking, and Welsi instructs them to place their hand on this magic orb to determine their attribute and its strength. While Inokami is taking her turn, Kazuki asks Usato if he really isn't angry about the way things turned out for him. Not only was he summoned here against his will, it happened by accident too. But luckily for him, the king actually accepts responsibility for his actions, and despite the likelihood that Usato might just be a regular dude, he is still being treated well. Besides, Welsi told him that there is still a chance that he might be able to use magic after all, so he might as well try. Usato is taking this a lot better than Kazuki was expecting, and then there is Inokami, who is still itching to get her grubby little fingers all over that ball. Once the preparations are complete, Inokami places her hand on the crystal ball, and it begins to glow with a brilliant yellow. This is indicative of the thunder element and also reveals that she has a huge mana reserve. Next up is Kazuki, and once he touches it, it begins to glow pure white, and this is one of the more rare abilities because only a few people can wield it. Light magic is the natural weakness against demons, so it will be a powerful asset in a war against them. Last up is Usato, but he doesn't have all that much hope that he'll be powerful. He just wants an ability that will allow him to be useful to his friends. He touches the orb and it begins to glow with a beautiful emerald green color, so he asks Welsi what it means, but she's freaking the hell out and grabs him to go inform the king of what has just happened. She bursts into the throne room to meet the king and he asks what happened. She says Kazuki and Inokami both have great magical aptitude, but the real issue is with Usato's magic. The king doesn't understand what the big deal is and jokes that it wouldn't even be that bad if Usato's magic was the dark element. But Welsi mentions that his aptitude test showed green, and the king's face immediately goes to, oh shit, this is bad. With how they are reacting, Usato wonders if he might be radioactive or something, but it is something much worse than that. The king starts making plans to relocate Usato somewhere else for his own safety. Usato asks if his ability is really that rare, but there is actually someone else who has it, and that is the problem because she is major bad news. And as if on cue, the woman they were talking about bursts into the throne room. Everyone who knows her has a look of fear on their face, but Rose is just being diligent in her service to the king. She was supposed to be on vacation right now, and she decided to come in and check on the status of the summoning ritual. She spots Usato there and asks if he is one of the heroes, but the king, trying to draw her attention elsewhere, says he is just a random kid who got caught up in the summoning ritual by accident. Rose believes him and introduces herself to Usato as the captain of the kingdom's rescue squad. Wellesley then redirects her attention to the crystal ballroom where Inukami and Kazuki are waiting, so Rose begins to leave, much to the relief of the king. He tells Usato that they will figure out what to do with him later, but for now, they will provide him with suitable accommodation. However, Usato still has many questions he would like to be answered since he never learned what kind of magic green is meant to signify. Unfortunately, this was said within earshot of Rose, and upon realizing that his magic is green, she immediately makes a move to kidnap the boy. The king initiates a code red and asks Wellesley to get Usato out of here for his own good, so she forms a magic bubble and has him racing out of the castle at high speed. But Rose is always up for a manhunt and chases after him at amazing speeds. She catches up to the bubble and with a single punch, bursts it along with the entirety of Usato's intestinal tract. From the courtyard, she tells the king that she will be taking Usato, but he doesn't need to worry because she will turn him into a proper healer with her training. The king can do nothing but watch as Usato gets abducted, and the news is later broken to Inukami and Kazuki. They ask if he is in any danger, but it's not like there is a threat of him dying, but there will definitely be psychological damage inflicted. Green signifies healing magic, which is extremely rare for one to possess, so Rose, as a healing magic user herself, took Usato to train him on how to use it. The only problem is that her training methods are a little, well, they violate OSHA regulations, health and safety requirements, and break a few restrictions of the Geneva Convention. Usato learns from Rose that his ability is that of a healer, so she plans to train him to become one, which is why she brought him here. She calls on the boys to meet Usato, and in an instant, he is surrounded by 5 big burly guys and pinned against a wall. All that's missing now is a camera and a white couch. Rose roundhouse kicks one of them and says they shouldn't scare Usato, so she carries on with her explanation. These guys are part of the rescue squad, but they aren't actually healers. There are 2 other healers in the rescue squad, but they are stationed elsewhere right now, so Rose is going to take on his training personally. And to put it lightly, Usato is screwed big time. There wasn't much he could do about the situation, so he chose to just sleep it off and see what happens. And as he awakens the next day, he finds that he is still in this world. The other members of the rescue squad who are currently getting breakfast ready come into the room and tell Usato that he has visitors here to see him. He is surprised to hear that and goes out to find Inumaki and Kazuki have come to check on him. They got worried when they heard that a green-haired lady just grabbed Usato and left, but it seems he actually isn't in any serious danger from his current condition. He tells them that he is fine, but then he remembers that he is still meant to be training under Rose today, and he is still thoroughly screwed because that walking tank of a woman is going to personally train him. He may be alive right now, but there's no telling if he will still be breathing by tomorrow. The others ask if the training is really that bad, and from what he has heard about it, it really is that bad. But he seems oddly calm about his fate since he already resolved himself to complete the training no matter what it does to him. There is nothing better for him to be doing anyway, so he might as well put up with it for now since it will give him a chance to not be so useless in this world. Inumaki finds what he says to be inspiring and makes a promise to do her best with her training as well, and that lifts Usato's spirits a bit as he starts talking about the kind of cool hero training they might do. The 2 later leave the rescue outpost to return to their training for the day, and as they go, Usato thinks those 2 are amazing for adjusting in this world so quickly. If possible, he would like to become someone who can help them in their various battles as heroes, which is why he is going to give his training everything he has got, even if it might kill him. Speaking of the devil, Rose comes out and asks if the heroes have finally left, startling Usato and making him give a very robotic response. Rose tells him to calm down since he is not in prison or anything. He is free to talk to his friends as much as he likes, as long as they are not training, of course. She throws a diary over to Usato and tells him to write down his training regimen or his experience here. And you know is going to be traumatic when they are giving you a diary before you even start training. She tells him they will begin after they are done eating breakfast, so he had better prepare himself. After breakfast, they begin their training, and surprisingly, it wasn't as bad as Usato had thought it would be. All they were doing was learning the basics of magic and how to control it, but for now, she tells him to just focus on the feeling of the magic in his body. Next, she asks him to read this thick-ass book, but he doesn't know how he is meant to do that when it is written in a language he doesn't understand. But she tells him to just take a look at it before he starts complaining. He opens the book and realizes that he can actually understand it despite having never seen this language before, and Rose attributes that to the translation spell that is cast automatically on anyone who gets brought into this world by the hero's summoning. She points to the first page of the book and shows him the location of the kingdom of Linger on the map, as well as the location of the demons. And the kingdom is literally right next to the demon's front door, so the next time they decide to go on the attack, Linger is going to be the first to be attacked. She leaves and tells Usato to finish reading that book because it will tell him everything there is to know about this world and the nations in it. This part of the training wasn't so hard, but then day 2 came and he was made to run. He doesn't know how this was meant to help him with his magic, but he ran until his muscles gave out due to soreness, and once that happened, you think he got to rest. Nope, Rose just slapped the shit out of his legs with healing magic until he could move again, and then told him to keep on running. He's going to run until he drops dead today, and after he dies, she will revive him with healing magic so he can keep running some more. This is the trauma the diary was meant to document. By day 4, Usato was training with the rest of the team out in the fields, and while he has gotten better since day 2, they are still passing him easily, so he has got a long way to go. He continued to run into day 5 and then day 6 until he slipped and fell in the rain. But the hellish training seems to have had some effect because Usato can now see the glow of the healer light coming from his hand. But with all the pain he has had to go through, he can't even be happy about it. On the 7th day, there was still no rest for Usato as he was forced to run till his body gave out yet again, and on top of that, Rose kicked him in the butt with force that can split a tree in half. She tells him that the more he hates her, the harsher she will get, and true to her word, Usato got his butt kicked repeatedly, day after day, until his body was forced to learn how to output healing magic for its own survival. He was able to heal his broken butt, but not only that, he could now heal all the muscle soreness from running all the time on his own. Ever since he learned how to output his healing magic, he has been able to run indefinitely without getting tired, but even then, he is not sure if running laps every day make him strong enough to stand alongside Kazuki and Inumaki. He is keeping his doubts to himself in his diary for now because he already knows Rose would only punish him for thinking that way, and almost as if she can read minds, she yells that Usato has to do 30 more laps before he gets to stop running for the day. Now it's personal. Usato isn't doing this to help his friends anymore, he is just going to get through this training and prove Rose to that he can handle anything that she can throw at him. The next day, Usato had a new task added to his training regimen and had to do over 1,000 push-ups in one go. Usato is starting to get tired after over 800 push-ups have been completed, but torn muscle fibers aren't enough to stop him anymore since he can just heal himself when he gets tired. Rose finally tells him why she is pushing him to such lengths to strengthen his body, and it is because a healer is of no use if they get killed early in the round. He needs to have the physical strength to run away from the enemy if needed. The faster you can run on the battlefield means the faster you can save your allies from the brink of death, so it is very important that you strengthen your body as much as possible to be an effective healer. This time, Rose doesn't yell at him and just tells him to get back to doing his push-ups. The next day, his routine has become running all morning and then late into the evening, he does push-ups. This time, as he is doing his push-ups, he can feel that his body has gotten lighter for some reason, probably because the training is paying off, so to offset his new physical capabilities, Rose added weights to his workout routine for the next day. After that, Usato came into the house to find that his lunch had been stolen by one of the members of the team, and he wasn't going to stand for such injustice, so he was ready to lay the smack down on that guy if he can manage to catch up to him. He was complaining a lot at the beginning of the training, but now he is starting to get used to it more and more, which may not exactly be a good thing. A week later, and 21 days since Usato began his training, Kazuki and Inumaki pay him a visit. They are led to his training ground, and they are shocked by what they see. Usato is doing push-ups, but these are absurdly difficult push-ups with the added weights of a 10-ton rock and Rose sitting on his back. Usato has started to grow the spine to talk back to Rose whenever she tries to insult his performance, so he ends up saying that she is so light that this much is nothing. Shortly after, he began to regret those words as Rose decided to add another rock on top of the one that was already on his back, nearly flat out squishing Usato, but he still manages to hang on for dear life. He uses his healing magic to repair the broken bones he must have gotten and continues to push through the pain, and that's the kind of thing Rose loves to see. At this rate, she thinks she will be able to take Usato with her onto the battlefield sooner than expected. As Kazuki and Inumaki watch what just happened, Kazuki can't believe how cruel the training he is undergoing is, but all Inumaki sees are those mouth-watering muscles that Usato is now packing. The knight captain that came with them is outraged by what he just witnessed and yells at Rose for trying to break the spirit of a young man. This kind of training would have left any regular man crippled, but even if she could heal him afterwards, the psychological damage wouldn't be going anywhere. However, Rose doesn't see a problem with her methods since Usato seems to be adjusting to it well enough. Plus, she plans to have him be her right-hand man so she can't afford to take it easy on him just because of his sanity. Usato hears this, and this was never part of the agreement. He doesn't remember ever saying he would become her right-hand man or anything. Rose tells Usato that he can take a lunch break and catch up with his friends since she has things to talk about with Sigillus. So Usato, Kazuki, Inumaki, and Princess Celia, who accompany them, all go to have a chat under a tree where Usato learns that Sigillus is the strongest knight in the kingdom. It's currently the one teaching Kazuki and Inumaki how to use a sword in battle, which Usato finds awesome. That aside, he asks who this girl is, so she introduces herself as Princess Celia of the Olinger Kingdom, and realizing that she is the princess, Usato begins to bow and apologize if he was rude to her. Celia doesn't like the princess treatment, so she asks Usato to just treat her like any normal person. She brought a pastry for them all to share together, so they dig in. Kazuki asks Usato if his training is always as bad as it was today, but he actually had it pretty easy today compared to what he normally has to go through. Usato asks what kind of training Kazuki and Inumaki have been up to this entire time, so he recounts that they've been doing sword training with Sigillus, followed by some magic training with Welsi in the afternoon. But their mental health is still taken into consideration while they are going through the training, unlike what Usato has to go through, but he has lost enough brain cells, so he is used to it by now and it's not as bad for him anymore. Usato reaches for another slice of pie and Inumaki can't help herself and gets real down bad for Usato's rock-hard abs. Usato tries to change the subject before Inumaki can any more moist and asks if there was something Kazuki wanted to ask him. Kazuki says it's nothing much, he was just wondering if Usato was having a hard time here, and yes, he definitely is, but is much more manageable than it was when he first got here. He wanted to run away, but Rose was too fast, so he had no chance of escaping, but after doing it for a while and getting used to the new environment, he has started to think of this place as home and somewhat enjoy the training. He may just be being stubborn in the end, but since he is not a hero or anything, he wants to be able to assist them when they go into battle against the demon army. Just then, the guy who ate Usato's food a week ago shows up to bring Usato his lunch, but Usato has still got beef with him. They start trading blows with one another, and Usato will probably win since he can heal himself and the other guy can't, but the others wonder if they should intervene or something. Kazuki thinks it is fine since Usato seems to be having fun, so this is probably him at the happiest he could be. Knowing that Usato is alright, he decides it is time to go back to the castle and continue his training, so they all get up to follow him back. As Inumaki is about to leave, she thinks to herself that there must have been a reason that Usato got pulled into this world with them, so they should all try their hardest to become the best versions of themselves here. That night, after beating up the lunch thief, Usato takes a bath and thinks to himself that he is glad he got to see Inumaki and Kazuki. Although Inumaki kind of creeped him out back there with how she was looking at his body, but then again, he can't blame her because his body is awesome right now. He is faster, stronger, better, and this is all a result of the training he has constantly been doing, pushing his body to its very limits and then healing it back up with his magic for an incredibly fast growth rate. But even with his unbelievable muscle gains, he doesn't know if it will be enough to save people out on the battlefield. The next day, Usato is told that he will be heading out with Rose for the day. The others know what this means for Usato, but he is still oblivious, so he follows Rose out of the kingdom and into the forest. There, she tells him that he is not allowed to come home until he has killed a grand grizzly bear. And I may be missing a page, but I don't think Usato ever actually learned how to fight, but Rose doesn't seem to care and just tosses him into the forest with no assistance or guidance of any kind. On top of that, Usato doesn't exactly have fly hacks enabled, so unless he does something quick, we're going to have to cut the season short. As he is about to hit the ground, he turns around to face his problems and proclaims he won't let himself die here as he stretches his arms to break the fall. And while he ended up surviving, you know he's got to have at least 2 new elbows after that one. He takes a moment to heal his broken body and comes to terms with the fact that he is now stuck in this forest until he kills a grand grizzly bear like Rose had asked him to. He could still just leave without killing one, but then he would have to deal with Rose, and Usato would much rather handle a bear than her. Besides, it's just a 2-meter-tall giant with razor claws. How bad could it be? It is actually pretty bad after all. The bear is much bigger than he had thought it would be, and looking at it up close is terrifying, so he backs out and uses the Joestar family's secret technique. He is sure that with all of his running practice, he should be able to outrun the bear with ease, but the bear never skipped leg day either. Seeing that he won't be able to outrun the bear anytime soon, he thinks back to all the hellish training he survived and grew enough confidence to turn around and tell the bear, "Come at me, bro." However, this was never a fair fight to begin with, as the bear had 2 others there to jump Usato's ass. He turned back around and kept running like his life depended on it. As he ran, he heard the sound of a rushing waterfall, so decides to use that to his advantage and escape the bears by leaping off a cliff and into the water. The bears stand and watch to see if he comes back up, But after losing interest, they all walk off, leaving Usato alive for another day. Meanwhile, Usato makes it out of the river and hangs his clothes up to dry as he finally takes a look at what he has in his bag, and he sees that he was given nothing but the bare essentials for survival. Some water, a knife, and some bread that can also substitute for a weapon to deliver blunt force trauma. He still doesn't know how he's going to manage to take out a Grand Grizzly, but there's no use worrying about that now as it has gotten too late to do anything more. So Usato just decides he'll deal with it tomorrow and covers himself so he can safely get some sleep. The next morning, he heads out and begins strategizing for the takedown of the grizzly bear, and the first thing on the agenda is to find out where the thing lives so he can plan out an ambush on it. He begins making his way through the forest and marking out his path so he doesn't get lost when he comes across some bear claw markings on a tree nearby, so he starts worrying that the bear might be nearby right now. However, as he draws his knife in preparation for a fight, all he sees is the head of a little bunny looking at him. The bunny appears to be hurt on its back foot, and even though he is still in a survival situation, Usato decides to be nice and heal the protein so it can live another day. He then gets back to his hunt for the grizzly, but now he has the protein following him around. He tries to tell it to leave him alone, but the bunny keeps following him around until he tells it to stop unless it knows where to find a Grand Grizzly. To his surprise, the bunny knew exactly where to find them and proceeds to lead Usato to the exact location of the grizzly bears who are currently sleeping. For now, he decides it would be best to just observe rather than going straight for the stealth kill achievement, so he heads back to camp. On day 3 of his forest trial, he is now forced to drink untreated river water, which I'm sure won't have any lasting effects. While he was collecting some, that same bunny comes up to him again, wanting to spend time together, so Usato agrees as long as it doesn't do anything rash while they are watching the bears again. There were no significant changes to the behavior patterns of the bears, and watching them act normal, Usato is starting to find them to be really cute. It also helps that he has this cute bunny around to accompany him, so he's having a bit of fun now. It's day 4 and Usato is no longer having any fun. He just spent all morning shitting his guts out thanks to that untreated river water, and healing magic has no effect on his current bowl blasting syndrome, but he has no other water source, so at this rate he's going to be done in by water. While writhing in pain, the bunny comes over to check on him, and Usato is happy he gets to see his bunny friend before he dies of water poisoning. But the bunny is more than just a cute companion. It actually has valuable information about the area and leads Usato to a pool of clean water in the forest. It may not be perfect, but it's definitely a whole lot better than river water. Just then, the bunny starts acting really weird and climbs up into a tree to escape for some reason. Usato doesn't know what is wrong, but he assumes it can't be anything good, so he gets into the tree with the bunny. It must be sensing that a predator is approaching, but what kind of monster could be making it react so strongly while it did seem to care while they were watching the grizzly bears? He gets his answer soon after as he sees this giant snake just cruising through the forest while looking for something to kill. This wasn't in the forest guidebook, but even he can tell that he must never go near that thing if he hopes to be able to survive this forest. As the snake passes, he breathes a sigh of relief and goes back to his normal routine. 4 days have passed since he encountered that giant snake in the forest, and he has finally started to get over the fear that it caused. He has kept on watching those grizzly bears and still finds them really cute, but the fact still remains that if he doesn't kill the Grand Grizzly, then Rose won't let him go home, so he is inevitably going to need to kill that bear sooner or later, so he decides that he will finally do it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and his bunny friend keeps pleading with him not to go right now, but Usato needs to do this no matter what. So far, the bunny hasn't failed Usato yet, so he agrees to stay back at least until the rain stops. As the rain settles down, Usato heads off to finish what he was thrown in here to do and walks toward the den of the grizzly bears. But as he gets there, he finds that something else already beat him to the punch and killed the Grand Grizzly. From the look of the bite marks on the body of the bear, it must have been that snake that did this to them. And what's worse is that the snake was clearly just itching to kill something, since it clearly didn't kill them for food or because a scary healer lady was forcing him to do it. The baby bear tries to get its parents to wake up, but they are dead. Usato hates losing, which is why he kept up with Rose's unreasonable training methods, but more than that, he hates the scene of the baby bear losing its parents like this, so he swears to avenge it, which is pretty ironic considering that he was coming here specifically to kill him before. Back in the kingdom, Inumaki and Kazuki go to visit Usato again and are told that he isn't here at the moment. He has been out training in the forest for the past 10 days so far, but Kazuki thinks that is a bit too long to just be training and starts probing for the details of Usato's training regimen, but the guys don't want to give any details without Rose's permission, so they feign ignorance. Kazuki is still really worried about Usato, but Inumaki doesn't seem all that bothered, since from what she knows about Usato, he'll be fine. Meanwhile, Usato is preparing for war out in the forest, and after making sure he is ready, he asks the bunny to show him the way to the giant snake. Understandably, the bunny is hesitant to go anywhere near the snake, but Usato assures it that it won't have to stay there. All it has to do is lead him there so he can fight it. The bunny agrees, and eventually Usato comes across the den of the giant snake and finds the baby bear who just received his first defeat of his shonen career after trying to avenge his parents. It even has the scar for character development. Usato is scared at the sight of the snake, but he swore he would defeat it. That is what he's going to do. Besides, nothing is scarier than Rose, so this shouldn't be that bad. He runs forward and tries to stab the snake in the face, but nearly gets his face bitten off in the process. He manages to evade and stab the snake in the eye, successfully creating a blind spot for further attacks. However, the snake anticipated this and lured Usato into a trap for it to bite into its arm. But just as the snake thought it had won, found out that Usato has his second health bar. He managed to do some good damage to the snake, but now he's got the problem of being poisoned. Luckily, his bout of dysentery from earlier taught him a valuable lesson on how to deal with poison as a healer. If your insides have been affected, then just use healing magic to replace your insides. Having neutralized the effects of the poison, he runs forward to attack once more, and the baby bear is already on its power-up arc as it holds the snake in place, allowing Usato to get on top of it and bring it down with a skull-cracking punch. He then drags that spear through its brain until the snake finally stops moving and he believes the battle has been won. Usato collapses on the ground and gets approached by the bear, who has now reached to become friends with my former enemy Shonen Arc. It is grateful to Usato for avenging its parents, but Usato can't heal any of its injuries since completely replacing your insides takes a lot of magic power to do, so he can barely move anymore. Just then, the snake revealed that it also had a second health bar, and with Usato not being able to move, he curses Rose's name as he is about to be killed. But just before he dies, Rose comes crashing down from the sky and finishes off the snake by caving in its skull. Usato is confused why she is here, but Rose has been waiting outside the forest this entire time in case something bad happened. And that bunny that was following Usato around was actually her pet all along. She never actually expected him to win a fight against a grizzly. Even the best of the kingdom's knights wouldn't be able to handle one alone, so she just wanted him to gain experience by fighting a strong monster. But then this demon snake showed up and ruined it. It was a modified monster made by the demon army during their last invasion. Sigilise failed to finish it off, so it somehow ended up here, and she had to say that she is really impressed by how well Usato did against it. In regards to his training, he passed with flying colors, so she carries him out of the forest and back to that clifftop. She is proud of how much he has grown and tells him that he has the right to stand beside her on the battlefield. He has everything she is looking for: a strong body, high pain tolerance, and a strong will to go on. Though he still lacks battle experience, they need to make it in time with the training because the demon army will be making their move soon. Upon hearing the news, Usato believes she means that war will break out soon, and he is correct in that assessment. And when the war inevitably arrives, he will be tasked with healing the injured on the battlefront. This means that he's going to have to go out onto the front lines. Usato is a bit nervous about being on the front lines of a war, so he asks why the other two healers can't handle the front lines instead of him. While there are two other healers, Rose says they have other places where they are best suited, which is code for those two are wimps. But not Usato, as he has what it takes to keep up with Rose, and for that reason will be indispensable to the lives of the soldiers who will be relying on him. No pressure, but yeah, a lot of pressure. In any case, Usato still has time before he needs to start worrying about that, and hopefully by then, he will be ready. Meanwhile, on the Demon Continent, the Demon King asks one of his generals how the preparations for the planned invasion are going, and it looks like there will be no delay in their plans. He does expect to win, but is worth being cautious since the kingdom was able to repel their forces even if only temporarily. Thus, he puts his general in command and tells her that while he doesn't expect her to fight to the death out there, she had better at least come back with a KD ratio above 1. She promises to live up to his expectations, and Emilia is dismissed from the meeting. As she exits into the corridor of the demon castle, she gets teased about being nervous in front of the king by her fellow general. Emilia has better things to do than get teased by the furry doctor, so she begins to walk off. However, Huralik tells her that his latest animal experiment is going really well, so she could come check it out if she wants to. Curiosity gets the better of Emilia, and she decides to go take a look at what kind of monster the doctor has cooked up this time. It's a giant snake with potent venom, but that's just the same as the one he made last time. And didn't it end up escaping after they poured a lot of their budget into it? The last one was defeated by a knight named Sigils and ended up escaping, but there is no need to worry as this one is far stronger than the last. Amila certainly hopes so, since there is a threat in the kingdom that is far greater than that of Sigillus. Hurlek knows what she is referring to, as he has heard the rumors as well. They are called the Kidnappers, since they just run out onto the battlefield and snatch up any of the wounded before dipping the hell out of there. The reason the Linger has been able to hold its ground is thanks to the works of these rescuers in minimizing casualties. And not only that, but their boss is a healer as well, so she's able to get wounded soldiers back into the fight while also being an abnormally fearsome fighter. A healer has no business one shooting bosses out on the field. But do you think Rose gives a damn? Amila's master and Rose have some history, so Amila hopes to be able to kill her with her own hands if they ever cross paths. Unfortunately, that won't be anytime soon, as since she was put in charge of the battle, she is not going to be taking part in any battles. The front lines are going to be handled by that guy over there, the immortal dark magic user. Meanwhile, Usadov has finally settled back into a normal life and is just glad to have a bed again. Early that morning, he heads over the pens to wake up his bear companion, and as it wakes up, he offers it some fruit that he found in the dining room. It seems to like it a lot, so Usadov tries a bite of the fruit, and it apparently tastes a lot better than it looks. So that bunny that was spying on him for Rose wants a bite of it as well. Usadov hasn't forgiven it for betraying him yet, but then again, it's a very cute bunny. Usadov caves in and gives the bunny some fruit as well, but that makes the bear jealous, so Usadov gives Blurin another one. Rose comes up to him and is judging Usadov harder for his choice of name for the bear, but in any case, she told the king about the bear, and they got a budget extension to take care of it. Blurin is officially the property of the rescue squad, but that also means that he is going to be forced to pull his own weight around here. But in actuality, Usadov is the one who is pulling all of Blurin's weight, as he is now carrying him on his back for training. Rose says this is necessary to simulate the situation where he will be carrying a person's body in his back and running through a battlefield. Rose tells him to start running already, so Usadov sets off on his simulated battle run. As he is running though, he gets attacked by the rest of the rescue squad, who were tasked with recreating the conditions on a battlefield, so they are all going to be after him for the entire duration of the run. An hour after the initial attack, Usadov gets surprise attacked again by one of the guys popping out of the ground, and the other throwing poop water at him. Many other things are thrown at Usadov, but he is able to dodge and evade most of them with ease. However, as 6 hours drag on, he finds that he is much more tired than he normally would be at this point and ends up collapsing. He knows that he normally should be perfectly fine with running for 6 hours straight, but his body has already given out. Rose comes up to him and explains that the reason he feels much more tired than usual is due to all the stress, anxiety, and frustration that comes with the environment of a battlefield. All the mental anguish slowly eats away at you until you physically can't go on any longer, and the best part is there's no way around it. You've just got to get used to it. Rose heals Usadov and tells him that once his magic levels have been restored, he should go into town and run around before circling the castle for the rest of his training. All while carrying Blurin, of course. Usadov does as he is instructed, and as expected, people begin to stare at him as he runs through the town carrying a blue grizzly bear. The people slowly realize that Usadov is one of the members of the rescue team, so they now know that there is nothing to be worried about. Blurin's nose picks up a good scent, and he wakes up to tell Usadov to follow the scent, which ends up leading them to a stall where the delicious fruit from that morning is being sold. Usadov apologizes to the lady since he doesn't have any money on him to buy anything, but he asks what that fruit is called since he doesn't know what it is. She informs him that it is one of the country's signature fruit. Usadov has one more question and asks why, even though he is carrying a dangerous monster in his back, the people here don't seem to be freaking out at all over it. So the least explains that it's because they know he is part of the rescue squad. They can tell by the dusty outfit he is wearing, and from time to time, the other members of the rescue squad would run through town. So if the people could get used to those guys' ugly faces, then there isn't much that can scare them anymore. Usadov thanks the lady for the information and promises to come back some other time and buy some fruit from her. But before he leaves, the lady offers him one for free to commemorate their acquaintanceship. Usadov thanks her for the fruit, but he doesn't get to enjoy even a bite of it, as Blurin chomps down on the entire thing and also a bit of Usadov's arm as well. Usadov gets moving again, and as he leaves, a girl who was assisting the old lady comes out and asks if the boy who just left happens to be a part of the rescue squad, and it seems like she might have some interest in him. As Usadov was getting closer to the castle, he decided that he might as well visit the others since he was here anyway. But as he continued to run, a blonde man notices him and starts trying to catch up to him, but he clearly can't keep up at all. Husato notices him as he is about to die of exhaustion and turns around to get him to a place where he can rest and be healed. This guy is named Orga, and he is one of the other healers that were mentioned earlier. And while he seems quite nice compared to Usato, Rose was right, he's a wimp. Orga is really impressed that Usato can manage to keep up with Rose's training regimen, as it was impossible for him and his sister to do so at all. His sister is the other healer who is 5 years younger than him, and they run a clinic in the town and healing the citizens with their magic. However, if he is so good with healing magic, then how come he wasn't able to heal himself to recover his stamina while he was chasing Usato? In Orga's case, he just isn't very good at healing himself, but he's much better when it comes to healing other people. Usato asks what Orga's role is on the battlefield, and for the most part he stays in the rear while the members of the rescue team bring the injured back to be healed. Usato reveals that Rose had asked him to join her out on the front lines, but honestly, he doesn't know if he is cut out for something like that. Orga understands what Usato means and explains that in battle, the ones who are in the greatest danger are always the knights and magicians on the front lines. This reminds Usato that his friends fall into the category of people who are sent to the front lines and have to fight there. Warriors on the battlefield who get injured can usually do nothing but wait for death to come knocking as they bleed out. Their only saving grace are the healers running around to save them, and while Orga knows it is a dangerous and exhausting job, he also knows that Rose wouldn't choose someone to go out with her unless she truly believed that he could handle it. Orga needs to get back to his clinic soon before his sister gets upset with him. So Usato gets up to continue his training, but before he leaves, Orga asks him not to hate Rose too much since she may be a little abrasive at times. As Usato leaves, Orga's sister Ruru shows up and scolds him for leaving without her since he has the stamina of a 5-year-old. Orga says he's fine, but more importantly, he got to meet someone very interesting, and he's sure she'll like him the next chance they get to see each other. Usato makes it up to the castle and is worried that Blurin won't be allowed inside since he is a monster, but to his surprise, the king already gave permission for him to go in with the bear. Usato enters the castle and finds Inumaki training with some of the knights, so they sit down to talk. Usato starts narrating the story of what happened to him while he was training but Inumaki is too distracted by how fluffy Blurin is. She asks if it is okay to pet him, and Usato says it's fine, even if she gets her hand bitten. He can just heal her afterward. Inumaki reaches her hand out to pet him, and she indeed gets bitten. After Usato heals her, she asks if he came all the way here just to visit her, trying to get a tsundere reaction out of him, but he really did just come here to see her. Kazuki as well, but it seems like he's not here right now. He went out with Sigillus and some of the other knights to gain experience in the forest, so when he gets back, it will be her turn to go get experience. Usato is sure she will do fine and tells her as much before getting up to finish off his training for the day. That night, Usato meets with Rose and tells her that he was terrified to set foot on the battlefield, but today he realizes that he is even more terrified of losing his friends. So while he can't fight and won't kill, he will save everyone that he can, and Rose is happy to hear him say that, as those are the ideals of a true member of the rescue squad. The next day, Usato is woken up by a bag dropped on his chest as the king has issued an order for him to head out. He will be accompanying Inumaki on her upcoming training mission. As they head out, Usato asks Rose why he needs to accompany Inumaki on her training in the first place. After all, Kazuki had someone as powerful as Sigillus accompany him. She tells him that he was actually meant to join Kazuki as well, but at the time he had just returned from his forest adventure, so she refused the king's request. However, the king sent another request for a healer, and she couldn't exactly deny his request twice, so Usato needs to go now. But there's nothing to worry about since he is not going as combat support, he is just there in case they need a healer. They arrive at the castle gates, and Inumaki is surprised to see that Usato will be joining them on the expedition, and even better, she gets another chance to play with Blurin since Usato brought him along. Though the real reason Blurin is here is because he kept biting everyone's hand, so he can't leave him at base. Moving on, Inumaki decides to introduce Usato to the rest of the party, so he meets Iruku the Knight and Korin the Mage. Usato is pretty sure he has already met the knight before, and he is right as he sees him guarding the castle gate on his morning run. Just then, Rose walks up to Inumaki and warns her that Usato's healing magic isn't a get-out-of-death-free card. It can heal wounds and cure poison, but there are limits to its capabilities. Thus, she shouldn't take it for granted. But considering she was trained by Sigillus, she shouldn't need to be healed too often. Rose walks off, and Inumaki remarks that she is really strong. She's never been in the military before, but hearing Rose made her instinctually salute. They get on with the expedition, and we get a look at Kazuki as he is training with his sword. The princess comes up behind him and scolds Kazuki for working his body even harder despite being so fatigued from training, and even in this world, it is clear that the hoes still flock to him. Celia is worried for his well-being, but he assures her that he is perfectly capable of handling this much exertion. Meanwhile, Usato hears from Inumaki about the condition Kazuki was in when he returned from training. He was worn out from battling monsters while he cleared the forest, but he said the battle experience was worth the pain, and now they are going out to do the same thing. Usato recalls what happened last time he was in that forest, and he wonders if Blurren misses his home after being gone for this long. But speaking of Blurren, Inumaki asks if he will be waking up anytime soon, because if not, she wants to pet him. Normally something like that would be fine, but with how her hands were wriggling, I'm pretty sure we can classify that as a crime. Usato is not about to let Blurren get fondled in his sleep, so he smacks Inumaki's hand away repeatedly. She can't believe Usato is being so cruel to her, but really, she's the one to blame for acting creepy. All the commotion ended up waking Blurren up, and as he is now conscious again, Usato lets him down so he can walk on his own again. However, I'm not sure if you can call that walking. Seeing that Blurren is still really sleepy, Inumaki seizes the opportunity to offer him a piggyback ride so she can get some consensual physical contact. And while she doesn't get to feel his fur, I have to ask, was it worth it? Usato ends up having to heal her, and they continue the journey while he asks her to save the dangerous stunts for when they are in actual combat. And soon after, combat arises as Korin locates multiple entities up ahead. Aruku asks if it is monsters, but no, it's something much worse. People. Realizing that they've been found out, the bandits come out, upset that their plan to ambush the party has been ruined. They yell for the party to hand over all their valuables, but Aruku refuses to do so. The bandit leader isn't exactly giving them much of a choice and threatens the group with the large number of bandits that they have present. Meanwhile, Usato is what these idiots are up to because they are clearly trying to be bandits, but they don't seem very intimidating to him. The same goes for Inumaki, who is just excited to finally get her fantasy bandit fight. The bandits take a closer look and realize that the group have a blue grizzly with them, and while the rest of the bandits want to do the smart thing and run, the bandit leader urges them to stay since it is just a baby blue grizzly. They may even be able to capture it alive and sell it on the black market if they're lucky. Hearing them threaten her beloved Blurren, Inumaki fires a thunderbolt at one of the bandits, and surprisingly, the guy is still alive afterwards. Usato praises her for her control in her blast and tells her she's free to go wild. If any of the bandits get hurt really bad, then he will just heal them so they don't die. Thus, Inumaki proceeded to electrocute all the bandits, leaving just their leader standing. While Aruku is fighting the leader, Korin detects something else coming their way, and it is pretty fast too. So before Aruku can react, they are hit with a stampede of boars. These monsters usually live much deeper in the forest, so for them to be all the way out here, something really bad must have happened. Blurren steps out to defend Usato, but that leaves Inumaki open to be attacked, so to save her from a painful death, Usato uses his body to protect her and gets flung several feet into the air. He uses his healing magic to regenerate all the damage that they are surely going to take from this fall as they crash through trees and off the side of a mountain into a river. He remembers that he's been in this river before, so he knows there's a huge waterfall up ahead and warns Inumaki to brace herself. Usato opens his eyes to find Inumaki standing over him and trying to move his body to safety, but there was no need for all that since Usato already healed himself and was just resting after he dragged Inumaki out of the river. In any case, he wants to heal that cut on Inumaki's face before they do anything else, and she apologizes for having things come to this while they were out training. Usato says it's fine, and if he had to be stranded with anyone, then he is glad that it was her. But still, he never would have imagined that he would end up back in this forest so soon after he left. Inumaki is confused by what he means, so Usato explains that he got yeeted into the forest a while back, so he knows that it is full of monsters even more powerful than the boars that got them into this mess. They lay out everything they've got on hand, and unfortunately, they lost most of their rations and supplies, so they're in a pretty tight corner when it comes to food and water for the night. Inumaki asks why they don't just escape the forest right now, but from the look of things, it will be dark soon, and it might rain, so trying to leave the forest through all that might be a little difficult. For now, they should try to find a safe place and set up camp for the night. Last time he was in the forest, he would just sleep in the tree branches, but Inumaki has never climbed a tree before since her family would never let her have fun. As a compromise, Usato suggests that they head into a cave instead, as it will shield them from the rain as well. And now that they've settled their shelter issues, Usato mentions that it would probably be a good idea to get out of those soaking wet clothes. She agrees and goes over to a corner to change, but then she gets embarrassed and thinks Usato might peek at her. However, he hadn't even thought about doing any like that. Later on, Inumaki uses her lightning powers to catch them some dinner by electrocuting the entire population of salmon, and then starting a fire so they can cook that salmon. Usato is so glad to have her around because she is really useful in these kinds of situations. He takes off his clothes to have them dry off and sits by the fire to warm up a bit. Inumaki is over in the corner of the room, staring at the wall, so Usato apologizes if he made her feel uncomfortable, but it's just because after staring at his muscles, she's having trouble keeping her composure. She looks up and spots 4 glowing red eyes looking back at her, but rather than a spider as one would assume, it turns out to be a group of venom monkeys. Usato says he has read about these before and they shouldn't be aggressive, so it is safe to be this close to them. However, they do have venom in their name, so she should avoid touching them. Unfortunately, Inumaki never learned to keep her hands to herself and gets herself poisoned. Meanwhile, back at the castle, they have just received word from one of Korin's familiars that Inumaki and Usato have both gone missing. Kazuki is beside himself after hearing this and asks if a search party has already been assembled. The king assures him that the search party will be dispatched in the morning, but that isn't good enough for him, so he prepares to head out by himself. Before he can leave though, Rose gets in his way and assures him that there is no reason for him to be concerned for their safety. After all, Usato has survived far worse, and if he is alright, then Inumaki will survive as well. Rose was right, as after curing Inumaki's poison, they had a great lunch of fish, and Usato is really grateful that he has his own personal sparker with him. Inumaki doesn't like being compared to a piece of camping equity, but she is getting pretty sleepy, so Usato suggests that they take turns getting some rest. He's fine with letting her sleep first, but she feels bad after making him heal her so much since they got here, so she wants him to rest first so he can recover his magic. As the rain begins to pour, Inumaki calls over to Usato to see if he is still awake, and after he responds, she asks how he feels about them being summoned. That's a tough question since he wants to go back, but at the same time, he now has a reason to stay here as well. Inumaki doesn't want to go back, and Usato has a good idea of why. It's because she has nothing left for her in their original world, so she's much happier here. Usato sees nothing wrong with her way of thinking, as he also wanted to change. When they first got here, he trained so hard just because he didn't want to become a burden to her and Kazuki, but now he wishes to protect them along with all the people of the kingdom. Inumaki feels the same, so they agree to forget about Earth for now and just worry about saving this kingdom first. The next morning, they begin making their way out of the forest when they encounter something in the bushes. They are on edge at first, but it turns out to be Blurrin and the others who finally found them. Aruku is exhausted from having to chase Blurrin all the way here, and once he is healed, explains that they were searching for Usato and Inumaki when Blurrin suddenly started sprinting, so they thought he might lead them to Usato. Unfortunately, Blurrin was fast as hell, but now that they are all reunited, they prepare to leave the forest together. Usato and Inumaki later have a meeting with the king, who is glad to see that they both made out of the forest safely. He apologizes for getting Usato mixed up in this whole mess, but he says it is fine since it wasn't his first time getting thrown into that forest. This confuses the king, since there should have been no reason Usato ever gets stuck in that forest, and this is where Usato remembers that thing about Rose's training violating all the regulations imaginable. So to prevent fines, or whatever the equivalent would be in this situation, Usato lies and covers for her. Usato then looks over at Rose and realizes that he has no reason to want to cover for her. All that training must have been messing with his head, and it is really frustrating. With that out of the way, the king tells Usato that they will be reorganizing Inumaki's training for a later date, but for now, he wants to have a meeting with Rose and Sigillus, so he dismisses the kids. As Usato and Inumaki leave, he can't help but worry about the situation, especially since it seems like they are talking about something really serious. He is worried that he might get fired, but there aren't many hero candidates available, so Inumaki is pretty sure their jobs are safe. Just then, Kazuki and Princess Celia come up, and Usato casually greets them since it has been a while since they last saw each other. Kazuki can't believe they are up for small talk, as they both got lost in a monster forest and are just chill about it. He was ready to dash out into the forest to find them himself if he had to. Inumaki teases him for being reckless, but it's not like she's one to talk after she got herself poisoned because the monkey was cute. Later, they say their goodbyes to one another as they need to get back to their training. While Kazuki was catching up with his friends, Celia was feeling a bit left out. So while they are alone, Celia asks if she can become one of Kazuki's friends as well. If it's not too much to ask, she would like him to refer to her by her first name instead of as the princess, and he's fine with that. While the king is having his daughter rizzed up, he is in a meeting with the generals as they give a report on what they learned from interrogating the bandits. The bandits were crossing the plains when they noticed that there were far fewer monsters than normal in the forest, and soon after, they were attacked by that herd. If what they said is true, then it means that the monsters are fleeing something in those plains, and whatever it is, it's not going to be good. They believe it may be the Demon Lord's army, and unlike their last battle, the Demon Army is likely going to call in all the troops that they have available for this war. For that reason, they have to be ready to go to war at a moment's notice, so Sigillus is tasked with getting the troops prepared. After Sigillus has left the room, the king tells Rose that he has a request for her as well. Normally, he wouldn't ask the head of the rescue squad for something like this, but they are in desperate times. He wants Rose to go to the front line and check how far the demon army has advanced, but it's only natural to assign the task to her since she is the fastest person in the kingdom. Before she goes, he has one more thing to ask of her, and for this, he gets down from his throne and asks her to consider returning to her post as the battalion commander. She shoots that down real fast and says she will never return to her post again. The guilt she bears is far too great, and she still hasn't forgiven herself for the lives of her subordinates that she lost. The scar on her eye will never let her forget, and the memory serves as a constant reminder that once you're dead, you die. That is why she created the rescue squad, and it has definitely been a great help to the kingdom by saving the lives of dying soldiers on the battlefield. And now she has finally found someone who can stare right in death's face and yell psych. Usato is truly her perfect healer, so she is determined to train him until he is a better version of her. That aside, she is going to be carrying out the recon mission as requested, so the king tells her he is counting on her. That night back at the rescue squad base, Usato comes back in from feeding Blurin and finds a letter for him on the table. Rose had left it for him while he was out, and he is worried because this can't be anything good. He opens the letter and finds instructions saying there will be no training tomorrow, and instead, he is to deliver the enclosed letter on the table to the location marked on the map. He asks if any of the guys know where Rose went, but she didn't tell them much before she left. Meanwhile, through the pouring rain, the demon army is building a bridge to facilitate their invasion plans, and Amira is really enthusiastic about her role as commander here. However, Black Knight finds it to be cringe and tells her as much. Amira doesn't like his attitude, so even though they were equals before coming out here, she makes it clear that she is the commander here, so he has to listen to her orders. Black Knight doesn't really care and just walks away to wait until the bridge is completed. Harala comes over to see how things are going, and everything seems to be going according to plan, as in a few short hours, the bridge will be complete, and they will finally be able to begin their invasion of the kingdom. Just then, Amira receives a report from one of her soldiers that there is someone on the other side of the embankment. It is most definitely a scout for the kingdom, but she says it is fine to leave him alone, especially since by the time they get back to warn the kingdom, the invasion would have already begun thanks to the progress they've made in the bridge. However, moments later, a whole-ass tree is chucked into the bridge, and it is knocked into the river. Amira is having trouble processing what just happened, as there should be no way a single person can throw a tree that far. But as she looks up at said person, she sees Rose standing there and is enraged. Rose just smiles as she has had down what she came here to do, so she goes, "I'ma head out." This was meant to just be a reconnaissance mission, but at least she was able to buy the kingdom a few more days by destroying that bridge. The next day, Usato is out in town following that map Rose gave him, and people seem to be staring at him quite a lot, but it's more so because he is acting way too normal for someone who is part of the rescue squad. Usato happens to pass by that fruit stall he saw last time, and he would like to buy some fruit, but he still has somewhere to be, so he says he will come back for it later. He makes it to the location on the map and walks in to see if anyone is around. Yururu comes out to greet him and recognizes the rescue squad uniform, so she realizes that Usato must be the guy Orga was talking about last time. This is the clinic run by her and her brother, and right now, Orga is busy examining a patient, but she tells him he is welcome to have a look if he wants. They check in while Orga is healing his patient, and Usato notices that Orga's healing magic is much more intense and smooth than his own, so he really is specialized in this. After the boy is healed, both he and his mother are overjoyed, and now that he doesn't need to concentrate anymore, he realizes Usato and Ruru were watching. They sit down to chat, and Usato finally delivers the letter from Rose. While Orga is reading, Yururu chats with Usato about the Resume squad, and Usato ends up asking why she decided to quit. There were many reasons, like even though she's not as good as her brother, she is also specialized in healing others, so she couldn't keep up with the training. Meanwhile, as Orga reads the letter, you can tell that it's not good news from his sour expression, but he tries to hide it from the others while they continue to talk. In truth, Ruru feels a bit bad that she couldn't handle Rose's training, especially since Rose put everything she had into training them at the time. But she couldn't make the cut and ended up being slightly scared of Rose, although she seems to be much happier now that Usato is around. Just then, a man comes running into the clinic in a panic as he tells Orga that there was an accident where a guy fell off a roof, and on his way down, he took out 2 other people, so they need help quick. Orga agrees to come and asks Usato if he will be willing to join them, so they all head out to the scene. Usato makes it there first and Orga still has terrible stamina, so he catches up later. There are 3 people laid out on the floor bleeding. So after checking, Orga is sure that yeah, these guys are messed up pretty bad. He asks Usato to take care of one of them while he and Ururu handle the others. Usato prepares to heal the man's injured leg, but he is starting to second-guess himself because he has never had to heal an injury this severe before. And if they end up on the battlefield, he is going to have to heal injuries that are worse than this. Orga tells him to calm down and relax because to heal others, all he needs to do is believe that he can do it. Usato remembers what Kazuki said about Rose having complete trust in his capabilities, and if she believes in him, then he can believe in himself. They eventually manage to heal all the wounded people, and as they return to the clinic, Ururu and Orga praise Usato for doing so well in the situation, so they ask that he come by to help once in a while since they could use an extra set of healing hands. After Usato leaves, the mood turns serious as Orga informs Ururu that they have been called up to war as the demon army is approaching. There are no certainties in war, but Orga assures his sister that everything will be alright. Usato picks up that fruit he wanted and was about to head back to the rescue squad base, but he is suddenly grabbed by a little girl who says Usato is the only one that can change the future. She then proceeds to dump several time loops worth of trauma on Usato and then leaves. She can't just dump all that on him without an explanation, so Usato begins to look for her so he can get some context on what that vision was supposed to be, but she is nowhere to be found. The girl looks down at him from her room window, and she must have signed an NDA or something in exchange for that future info because she really doesn't want to explain things to him. Instead of providing some insight, she just silently begs Usato to succeed because he is the only one who can change the future. Usato continues to ask around town for the Fox Girl to see if anyone knows where she could have gone, but the guards haven't seen her anywhere. He cries out in frustration over the girl disappearing on him, and Rose happens to hear the commotion he is causing, so she comes over to check out what's going on. The guard gets scared by the mere presence of Rose, so he removes himself from the situation as soon as she arrives. And Usato can't really blame him either, as Rose is indeed pretty scary. Unfortunately, he made the mistake of saying this in front of her, so Rose palms his face and lifts his body by the skull. He tries to take back what he just said, but Rose heard him loud and clear. He then changes the subject by asking what Rose has been up to for the past day, so she finally drops him and explains that she was out on a field mission to scout out how far the demon army had managed to advance. Usato asks for more detail, so she continues by saying the demons were trying to cross the river by building a bridge, but there's nothing to worry about for now as she managed to destroy their bridge, so they should have a few extra days of safety. Usato is happy she did that, but that was a lot for someone who was meant to be out scouting, which earns him another face-palming from Rose. As they walk back to the healing base camp, Usato tells Rose about the Fox Girl he is currently looking for, and Rose seems to know something about her, although they have never personally spoken with each other. About 2 years ago, the girl arrived in the kingdom by herself. She was only 12 at the time, but she managed to cross the wastelands while dodging the bandits and kidnappers that must have been coming after her. Usato can understand that bandits would attack, but why would people be trying to kidnap a random little girl? Since he is not from this world, he wouldn't know of the lore, but here, demi-humans are incredibly valuable to kidnappers in part due to their appearance, but also because they often possess aptitudes for rare and powerful magic. The part about demi-humans possessing rare kinds of magic gets Usato's attention, so he asks if that includes being able to show people visions, so Rose asks what he means by that. He describes something like a nightmare of a future he hopes never comes to pass, so Rose gets the picture and states that there have been some beastmen known to have a magical ability called precognition that can predict the future, but that ability is extremely rare, and if one happened to have it, they would be heavily guarded for their own safety. She asks what made him bring up a question like that, but Usato doesn't want to tell her the full details of what happened to him, so he explains it away by saying he just read about it in a storybook. Rose is suspicious, but she has nothing more to say for now and tells Usato to head back without her because she needs to give a report to the king about her scouting mission. Back at the castle, Rose has just completed her report to the king, so he thanks her for her hard work and halting the enemy's advance. However, although she may have slowed them down, they are definitely working on rebuilding that bridge right now, so they have a few days at best before they complete it. This means they need to prepare for the invasion immediately, so he calls for Kazuki and Inumaki to be brought in for a meeting so he can brief them on the situation. The two of them have received the urgent summons and wonder what could be so urgent that they needed to be called immediately. As they turn the corner, they bump into Princess Celia and Inumaki treats her like she normally does, although things seem to be awkward between her and Kazuki. The king is still waiting for them, so Celia says they can go ahead and speak with him now. Meanwhile, at the rescue squad base, the guys are snoring as loud as ever while Usato lays in bed unable to sleep. He can't get the vision of the future out of his head. But even if he knows what will happen, what can he possibly do to stop it? The one thing the fox girl said before she ran away is that this is a future he can prevent, but he doesn't understand how he could possibly do that. Just then, he sees some floating lights outside the window, and since he is the only one awake, he gets to check it out only to find Kazuki waiting outside. The two sit down and have a chat, and Kazuki apologizes for coming here at this time of night, since Usato probably needs to be up early in the morning for his training, but he says it's alright since he wasn't sleeping anyway. Kazuki tells Usato that he was just called into a meeting with the king earlier this night and was told that the battle with the demon army will soon be beginning. He was expecting this, so he wasn't too surprised, but Inumaki seemed almost happy to have the chance to be soaked in demon blood. However, when he thought about having to fight and kill on a battlefield, he lost his nerve and ran out of the castle, which is why he is here now. He admits to Usato that he is scared to fight a war, and back when he was training the Sigillus and had to fight monsters, his legs froze up after he saw them for the first time. The monsters put up a fierce fight when he tried to fight them, and once he finally managed to defeat one, it dawned on him that he had been taking this whole situation way too lightly. When he fights the demon army, they are going to try to kill him with everything they've got, and that's not something he has come to terms with yet. The people of this kingdom have been so kind to him, supported him, and are relying on him to be their hero, but he's not sure if can live up to what they expect of him. Usato understands how he feels and begins to tell him how he thought of him back on Earth. He always thought Kazuki was a cool guy who knew what to do in every situation, but now he knows that even he gets scared as well. It must be tough having to live up to the expectations of those around him, but just so he knows he doesn't have to keep living up to those expectations. It's good to try to help others, but that should make him feel like it's wrong to put himself first sometimes. Kazuki asks how Usato feels about the war, so after thinking about it for a bit, he states that he will be joining the warriors on the front lines. He wants to save the people who get injured out there, and it's not like he isn't scared out of his mind whenever he thinks about it, it's just what he decided to do. Even though he could end up dying, he wants to be able to save the people he cares about, including Kazuki as well, and he'll do that whether Kazuki goes out to fight or not, because either way, he is still going to be his friend. Seeing Usato show so much resolve in the face of immense danger for the sake of his friends makes him more confident, so he decides that he will fight to protect everyone he cares about as well. The two make a promise to each other to keep the kingdom safe, but then Usato realizes that everything he just said was hella cringe, so he just wants to forget about it. Unfortunately, Inumaki was hiding nearby the whole time and listened in on the whole conversation. She tries making fun of his speech to get a reaction out of him, but he's not in the mood and tells her to leave it for tomorrow. Besides, he knows the reason she is here is because she got worried about Kazuki and followed him here. She confirms as much but says everything worked out because Usato managed to convince him to fight for the kingdom. Although, Usato still kind of wishes Kazuki didn't have to fight in this war. Inumaki asks if the same goes for her, and he would rather she didn't put herself in danger, but her situation is different because she already made up her mind to live in this world for the excitement, so fighting is something she really wants. She realizes he is right and decides to end their chat for the night since tomorrow is going to be a big day. The next day, the king makes a declaration to his army that the Demon Lord's army has been sighted near the capital, so it is only a matter of time before they are invaded again. He plans to intercept the demon army in the grasslands. They managed to repel the demon army last time, but by now the enemy has surely strengthened their forces, so it won't be as easy a battle as it was last time. However, that does not mean all hope is lost, as the kingdom has also made efforts to strengthen its forces. They have heroes Inumaki and Kazuki on their side now, who have pledged to do their best to defend the kingdom. And they have also got the aid of the rescue squad that was crucial in preventing casualties during the last war. He is sure that people must still be worried, but he has complete faith that the kingdom will emerge victorious this time. Tomorrow the fight begins and they will win. We later see Kazuki all dressed up in his suit of armor for the battle, but before he leaves there's something very important he must do, so he heads over to Celia's room. Celia was sitting on her bed when a maid came to inform her that Kazuki was here to see her. She answers the door and Kazuki apologizes for barging in on her like this, but she is actually happy she gets to see him before he leaves. He informs her that he will be leaving for battle tomorrow and she is worried for him, but tells him she hopes he has success in battle. Before he goes, Kazuki tells her that he will be back, finally calling her by her first name and making her blush, but at least he didn't confess his love or anything because that would have been a definite death flag. Back at the rescue squad base, Umaru is marveling at how cute Blurin is and asks if Usato will let her pet him. Usato has nothing against her petting Blurin, but she may lose a finger or two, especially now that he has gotten bigger. She doesn't think that will be an issue since animals always love her, but as she tries to pet his head, Blurin smacks her hand away repeatedly. She was on the verge of tears since he won't let her pet him, but that's when Rose's bunny shows up and gets on her shoulder. She tries to pet it as well, but even the bunny won't let her touch it. While she is dealing with rejection, Usopp notices that Orga is being rejected by gravity, so he goes over to save him from dying before the battle begins. Orga thanks Usopp and apologizes for all the trouble they are causing, but he doesn't really mind since Ruru seems to be really cheerful despite it all. Orga explains that she looks cheerful, but she's actually pretty nervous right now since it is her first time heading out into battle as well. She's just acting that way to cope. Just then, Usopp gets called into Rose's room because she has something to tell him, but he's a bit nervous now because he has never been called up into her room before, so he's a little worried about what may await him in there. Usopp heads up to Rose's room and she tells him they need to talk about something. She asks if he remembers what his role is on the battlefield, so he answers that he is meant to heal the injured with her on the front lines. He is right, but Rose says they won't be doing that at the beginning. The other members of the rescue squad will carry the injured to the rear at first, then they will heal them along with Orga and Ruru. Usopp asks why they won't be in the front lines from the start, but she says there isn't a point to being out there so early since there won't be many injured people. And with all the chaos that is bound to happen, non-combatants are going to be easy targets. She also has one more thing to tell him for when he does head to the front. He's going to have to make sure he only heals people who need it, otherwise he'll just be getting in their way. Now that she has said all she wants to say, she presents Usopp with a box and tells him to look inside. Within the box is a uniform she had made for him. It's made to help him stand out on the battlefield, and I've got to say he looks great in it. Rose has one more thing to tell him before they depart. Just because he can heal himself does not mean he is immortal, so he had better not take his life for granted. He never intended to die, but Rose tells him that she's known people who said the same thing and ended up dying anyway. If he does any of that self-sacrifice crap, and she will make sure she kills him with her own hands before the enemy can. Usopp gets the point that she is trying to make, so he promises that he will save everyone, including himself, and that brings a smile to Rose's face. As Usopp leaves her office, he still isn't sure what happened in that vision the Fox Girl showed him, but he knows what he has to do, which is to make sure Kazuki and Inumaki do not die. The long journey to the battlefield camp has begun, but it is taking far longer than Ruru had expected it to, since they haven't even reached the halfway point yet. They are heading out this far because they want to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the kingdom when they have to fight the demon army. At the front of the carriage, Usopp is riding with Rose and asks what demons are like since he has never personally seen one. So she explains that they look more or less human, but they have twisted horns and tougher bodies than humans do, as well as larger mana pools to draw from. So they surpass most humans in ability. Rose asks if Usopp is feeling scared now that he knows they are so powerful, but he already knew they would be dangerous to begin with, so this changes nothing. Besides, he already knows an even scarier monster that he is forced to deal with on a regular basis. Rose doesn't appreciate his comment, but instead of the usual beating, she just remains silent this time and continues leading the horse while having flashbacks to the last war. They look back at the time the king was addressing his generals before sending them into battle, and formally informs them all of the sighting of the demon army near the outskirts of the kingdom. So far, there have been no attacks thanks to the efforts of Rose, but there is no telling when casualties will begin to pop up, so they need to be ready. As a precautionary measure, they will assign guards to the merchants traveling outside the kingdom to maintain the supply chain, and he leaves the details of this measure to his generals to organize. After the initial address, Rose is met out in the hall and asked what she thinks of the recent movements of the demons. She can't be sure, but if she had to make a guess, she would think they are getting ready to begin an invasion on the kingdom. Although this is still just speculation since they don't know if they actually have enough forces to pull something like that off. Thankfully, with the king's orders, their forces are ready to be deployed at a moment's notice in the event of said invasion, but they hope it doesn't come to the point where that is necessary. Sigilus heads off to handle some of his army commander duties, and as Rose returned to hers, she thought to herself that it may be a good idea to get the rescue squad ready for deployment if necessary. While she was deep in thought, we see a girl run up to her and try to get her attention. The girl cries from the pain of Rose's gorilla strength punch, but Rose doesn't care for her tears and scolds her for interrupting her thoughts. The girl gets back up and starts walking alongside Rose as she asks if the demon army is really going to invade, but that just gets her another smack on the head because she was clearly eavesdropping on Rose's conversation earlier. All tries to be optimistic and says they just need to shove the army back and force them to retreat, but thinking so simply could prove to be a fatal error. They arrive at the base and All's squad greets her but can tell she looks a little pale, so they ask if something bad happened. That is when Rose states that she will be training them this afternoon, and they all instantly turn on All for causing this since they know she must have done something to make Rose want to train them. She starts making up excuses to get herself out of this mess, but the squad members aren't falling for it and start beating her up. And while that happens, Rose just walks away since All is getting what she deserves already. 1 week passes and Rose is once again meeting with the king as he gives her the bad news that the demon army has encroached into their territory. It seems like they are killing monsters in the area as they pass, so to the person who made the report, it looked like a group of highly trained soldiers. He is suspicious that they are attacking monsters, so there must be some nefarious intent behind it which they need to investigate. Thus, the king asks Rose to go find out what they are doing and what they plan to achieve by doing it. If necessary, she is allowed to use as much force as she deems to be necessary since the king has faith that she won't do anything that would put herself in serious danger. She thanked the king for trusting her and promised to produce results from her recon mission. That night, Rose met with All's squad and gave them the rundown of her conversation with the king, so with that in mind, they'll be heading out tomorrow. One of the squad members asks what the estimated number of demons they'll be facing is, and from the information that was gathered, it looks like it's around 30. They'll be troublesome if they end up having to engage a force that large in combat, so All tries to cheer them and says not to underestimate the enemy, but then again, they don't want to hear that from someone like All, even if she is their leader. They've had to train under Rose for the past week because of her, but she tries to defend herself by saying the training is really paying off since they are stronger than ever, which may be true, but that doesn't stop them from throwing things at her in anger. Rose turns her attention to the squad and tells them that they are going to have to be completely ready for the upcoming mission, so for that reason, she will be heading out with them personally. This gets the squad in high spirits, since although they know Rose can be insanely scary, she is still an amazing healer, so they don't have to worry about getting injured anymore. The next day, they headed into the forest by horseback and kept an eye out for any suspicious activity taking place, but they didn't spot anything unusual even after searching for the majority of the day. So after some discussion, they decided to search the west side of the forest as well. Some were opposed to the idea since the western side of the forest is known to be far more dangerous than the areas they've searched so far. For that reason, All suggested that they leave their horses behind since it would be too difficult to keep them safe along with themselves. The team listens to her since she is the deputy commander of their squad after all, but this is the first time they've ever actually treated her with respect. She tells the others to get some rest in preparation for the search tomorrow, but they all go to sleep immediately, leaving her to take the first watch. Rose tells All that she should get some sleep as well since she wants to take the first watch instead. While all the others are fast asleep, Rose notices that All is still awake and calls her out on it. All gets up and sits by the fire so she can ask Rose a question. She has always questioned why Rose would choose her to be the deputy commander when there are certainly many better options available than her for the position. Rose asks if she is saying she is unfit for the position, and that's exactly what All thinks of herself. The rest of the members of the unit have been personally trained by Rose to be the best at what they do, while All is just kinda there. As deputy commander, the only thing she does is submit request forms and handle paperwork, so anyone could have taken her position and there would be no change. Rose doesn't see how that makes her unfit to handle a position since she has thus far been keeping up with her tasks really well. With how well she manages, Rose may even someday hand over the title of commander to her. All wants nothing to do with the title of commander since she already has enough worries being the deputy. As Rose already knows, All is insanely stubborn. She served the entirety of her knighthood not listening to orders she didn't like, even if they came from superiors, and whenever she disagreed with someone, she would shut them up with her strength. But then she met Rose and suddenly all her tactics didn't work anymore. If she didn't listen to Rose, she would get smacked. If she tried to run away from Rose, she would get smacked. And if she tried to fight Rose, she would get smacked really hard. Rose doesn't really remember doing all that, but All certainly hasn't forgotten it yet. With that said, Rose says it is time to switch shifts on night watch, so she'll be going to sleep now. And as she walks away to get to sleep, she yells for the rest of the squad to get some sleep as well. All looks over and sees that everyone else was also awake and heard her entire conversation with Rose. They all tell her that they actually do trust her judgment and don't hate her as long as she doesn't do anything dumb. The next day, they head west and scale a mountain, which is why they couldn't bring their horses. Once they arrive at the summit, they find some alarming tracks. The claw marks of a wolf and tons of footprints, accompanied by fresh blood. It looks like the demons are really hunting monsters out here, but what would be the point of heading into human territory just to hunt monsters? Just then, they hear a loud roar coming from the forest, so Rose orders them to get in battle formation as they rush to the scene. We see a wolf being taken down by a group of demons and put in captivity. The squad is watching from a nearby bush and awaits instructions from Rose in order to avoid detection, but the demon leader still manages to figure out that they are there somehow. Rose gets up along with the others and confronts the demon about his reasons for being in human territory. He says he doesn't particularly like this mission he was tasked with, but it will be beneficial to the demon kingdom, so he had no choice but to do it. He won't tell her what those benefits are though. Rose still wants to avoid conflict, so she tells him that if he and his troops leave quietly, she can look past this transgression, but the demon has orders to keep this mission a secret, so now that they have seen it, he can't let any of them leave here alive. Rose puts all in charge of the team since she won't be able to give commands while she is busy with the demon commander. The demon commander charges at Rose while his subordinates clash with all and the others, and the demon commander begins by casting a spell to protect himself with wind. Rose is still able to keep up with him and eventually kicks him back with her insane strength, but in that split second, he also managed to slice her leg open. This is going to be tougher than she had initially thought, so Rose leaves things here to all and the others while she goes to handle him. As Rose chases him into the forest, the demon commander tries to escape by launching sneak attacks and fleeing when given the opportunity. However, something he didn't account for was the fact that Rose can one-hand palm a whole tree and chuck it like a football. Rose eventually throws a tree straight into him, but even that wasn't enough to put down the demon as he breaks free and casts a windblade barrier around Rose. Normally, walking through that thing would cause thousands of cuts that would lead to an excruciating death, but with Rose, she can just heal all the damage taken and walk out like nothing happened. The demon recognizes how powerful Rose is as a healer, so he announces his name as Nero and asks Rose for hers since he sees her as a worthy opponent. After she gives her name, he summons his sword and declares that he will kill Rose here today, and Rose states that she will defeat him before he has the chance to. Rose's soldiers can tell that the demons are indeed powerful, but that won't be enough to keep them down since they have their ways of compensating. Case in point, their teamwork strategy where one of them sneaks up behind and casts a sleep spell on the demon to put him out of commission. All is confident that they'll be able to hold their own since they are Rose's personal attack unit, and in Rose's end, she is struggling to keep the demonic sword away from herself. Even though she could heal a sword stab, that ominous red glow clearly indicates that it is imbued with a curse, so she can't risk it. Nero charges back in for another attack, but Rose swiftly counters, only receiving a scratch on the cheek from his hand, while he hits a full fist to the face, knocking him back to his troops, who now get to see their boss get beaten by a human. Rose walks up to him as she heals her scratch, ready to continue the beatdown. Nero never expected a little monster-catching expedition to become as troublesome as this. The soldiers he personally trained are badly outmatched, so he has to give his praise to Rose and her troops for being quite the skilled opponents. Rose doesn't think much of the compliment, but Nero sincerely means it. She is the most troublesome opposition he has faced during his entire time in the demon army. He had thought the human kingdom no longer had any heroes to speak of, so it would be easy to accomplish their ultimate goal. However, now he sees that he was underestimating them to a great degree. Rose doesn't understand what he means by the demon's ultimate goal, but Nero isn't going to elaborate on that any further. He states that the era where demons live in fear of humans will soon come to an end and their lord will awaken. As he charges up his demonic energy, he shares that although the demon lord may be cruel and terrifying, that's a problem the humans will have to deal with since he promises to bring mercy and victory to demon kind. And to ensure that future of prosperity, he must destroy them completely, even if it costs them their lives. This is where things started to go downhill, as Rose's soldiers were trained well in fighting, but it's a different story when your opponent doesn't care if they get stabbed. They may be able to deal fatal blows to the demons, but that puts them within range for the demons to take them down with every last bit of strength they can muster before they die. Rose sees what's about to happen, so she tries to make it to Neruka to save her life, but Nero runs interference and keeps her busy long enough for the demon to bash her head in before they die together. Rose is shaken by the loss of one of her troops, but it doesn't end there as the demons proceed to take out another one. With complete disregard for their lives, it is almost impossible to defend against their attacks, so Rose's soldiers keep dropping one after the other. Nero doesn't like having to use such dirty tactics like urging his men to die, but it was a necessary evil for the greater good of demon kind. Rose is starting to lose her cool since she has the power to possibly revive her team, and once she makes a hasty action, it is easy for Nero to read her moves and slash her eye out with his cursed sword. Normally, this wouldn't be able to do much to stop Rose since she could just heal, but the sword's curse prevents any type of mana from acting on the cursed region, so she won't be able to use any healing magic to recover. She is still determined to save her team, so she charges forward once more, but with half her vision gone and Nero still standing in her way, she doesn't have much of a chance of succeeding. He proceeds to charge at Rose to finish her off, and with only one eye, she lacks the depth perception necessary to tell when the attack is coming, so she is defenseless now. Nero's slash lands, but rather than hitting Rose, the slash lands squarely on All's chest. All has a smile on her face, being able to save her commander, But with that wound, Rose won't be able to save her. She falls to her knees and turns completely broken as a person. She looks over to the sea of bodies of both the demons mixed with her fallen comrades, and memories of their cheerful faces just makes it all the worse. They believed in her to heal them when they needed it, but she let every single one of them down. She wishes all would have at least tried to run away instead of sacrificing her life, but because of Rose's weakness and pride in her abilities, they perished. Nero stands over her, saying he will never forget the deaths of his comrades who sacrificed themselves for their cause, nor those of the skilled humans who forced them to employ such tactics. Now all that is left to do is kill Rose and return to the demon kingdom. But before he can finish the job, Rose grabs the sword out of the air out of the sheer rage she is feeling, what gives him the right to say he will remember her comrades for her. He knows nothing about them and even ordered his own soldiers to kill themselves, so what would he know about keeping the memory of comrades alive? She proceeds to land right hook after right hook on him, launching him several feet back. He tries to use the distance to activate his wind magic, but Rose meets it before he can activate the spell and pulls him face first into the ground. She then smashes him into the ground, tosses him in the air, and kicks him some more, all before punching him into a tree with astonishing force. And uses the same sword he slashes all with to stab Nero through the shoulder and begins walking to him to finish the job and avenge her soldiers. However, she sees a sight that stops her dead in her tracks. One of Nero's soldiers, who is still alive, is trying to save him despite his willingness to sacrifice his men. But in all honesty, she is probably Nero's favorite since he actually cares about her life and urges her to escape before Rose kills her as well. Amila refuses to leave him behind despite the danger, and she actually manages to free him successfully. However, before Rose could finish both of them off, she stops as Amila reminds her a lot of all, so she can't bring herself to kill her. Once the two have escaped, she cursed herself for being too weak-willed to finish the job for her team, but then she hears a voice and realizes All may still be alive. She crawls all the way back to All's body and tries to heal her, but All already knows her wound is too severe. Besides, the curse of that sword will prevent it from being healed anytime soon. All has already accepted her fate and tells Rose that she has no regrets in life and she is simply happy that she got the chance to fight alongside her as her subordinate. She knows the others must have felt the same way, so they would want her to keep being the same Rose that they knew and love. All passes away soon after, leaving Rose as a shell of her former self. She returns to the capital to report what she has learnt of the demon's plans and the likelihood that once they revive the Demon King, that they will invade the human kingdom. After her report, Rose makes a request of the king asking that he remove her as the army commander and revoke her knighthood. She no longer feels like she has the right to call herself a knight after she let her entire team die out in the field. She has nothing more to say, so she leaves the castle to go on her walk of shame home. As she walks through the streets, she gets called out by an elderly couple who recognize her as the commander of that squad. They say their son's name was Josh and he served under Rose, so she is prepared to take whatever manner of verbal abuse they wish to throw at her for getting their son killed. But on the contrary, they actually wish to thank her for helping Josh live a more fulfilled life. He was always kind of a bum before, but once he met Rose, his life turned around for the better. Rose keeps their kind words in mind, but she still can't bear to forgive herself for her failure as a captain. A month later, Rose was settling into her depressing life and had a chat with Sigillus about a visit the king paid her a couple days ago. He came all the way out here without a single guard just to see her, so she was quite surprised. She hasn't left this house for a month now, so Sigillus asks if the king wanted to convince her to rejoin the knights, but that's not the case. He came for the same reason Sigillus is here now, to make sure she doesn't send herself to the afterlife out of grief. Sigillus grabs her out of anger, but she tells him to calm down since she is not going to do anything stupid. He releases her, although he is still concerned for her well-being and asks how her wounds are doing. The curse of the sword was only temporary, so she was able to heal herself after a while, yet she still chooses to leave her eye unhealed as a reminder of how she failed her team. It will be her punishment for allowing them to die, but now she wonders what she is meant to do with this life of hers. She has considered going to hunt Nero down and kill him, but it's not like that would do much good. She takes a breather to cool off and sits in the dining area. But then memories of the good times they shared together come flooding back and she is hit with another depressive episode. Just then, she begins hallucinating of All, and while she is still dead and gone, the hallucination reminds her that the Rose the team knew would never sit around and brood like this. They would have wanted her to keep her usually spirit high and fight in honor of them, so Rose now understands what she needs to do. She will act in a way that her fallen comrades can admire, so first, in preparation for the next battle that is bound to happen in the near future, she wants to make sure that no soldiers have to die out on the battlefield, so she will create a team to rescue them. She will need at least 5 people to start with, at least 2 other healers, and 1 other person as powerful as her. Someone who can run through the battlefield and heal the fallen while also taking out threats along the way. And that person is sitting right next to her now, so she tells Usopp that she is glad she got to meet him. That came out of nowhere, so it freaked him out a little, but Rose tells him he has no idea how precious his existence is to her. Imagine if all healers were able to do the things she can do. It would probably be the end of the world, but the point is that it is not possible for something like that to happen. He is the only other person who has grown this strong, so she is certain he won't die if she brings him with her, and her confidence in him puts a smile on Usado's face. After a long and tasking journey, the team finally reach the front lines and spend the night out in the wastelands. While everyone else is still asleep, Usado gets up early in anticipation for what is to come. As he stares off into the lands, he is noticed by Inumaki, who is up early as well. She communes how this suit looks almost exactly like Rose's, and then proceeds to ask for his opinion on her own war outfit. Usado does not particularly care, but she is really milking it to get a compliment out of him, so she tries baiting him into asking about what is so special about the suit. He still doesn't care, but that's not going to stop her from telling him. It was apparently designed to work well with her thunder magic as well as not hinder her movement in any way. She is really excited. Usado can tell she really likes it, but he wouldn't have guessed she was the type to like things like this over cute stuff. However, she protests that she also likes cute things as well. For instance, she used to grow cactus back on Earth to soothe her heart, but Usado doesn't see how she could consider cactus to be cute. Since Usado doesn't think her cactuses are cute, then she wants him to soothe her heart instead. She's taking a real leap in logic, but she had expected Usado to fall for her by now, and the fact that he hasn't yet must mean he is a tsundere, and she is done waiting for him to warm up to her. The only thing he can do is call for help from Kazuki, and like a true bro, he shows up as soon as he sensed that his buddy's virginity was in danger. He drags Inumaki off to have his strategy meeting with Sigillus, but she promises to come back for Usado later. With that more or less taken care of, he looks back out into the wastelands, and he is feeling a little more calm now. The army has been posted up in formation, ready to intercept the demon army with a preemptive strike. From the information they got from their scouts, the demon army should be arriving in about half an hour, and once that happens, they will launch a magic attack. With the opening they'll get, Kazuki and Inumaki will engage the enemy forces in combat, while the rest of the knights try to clear a path for them to the enemy commander. If possible, it would be best if they were able to take the commander's head, but they shouldn't do anything too risky. They head out to their posts, and Kazuki asks Inumaki if she happens to be nervous about the upcoming war. Her behavior earlier with Usado was out of character, meaning she was probably trying to distract herself. Kazuki can be really perceptive when it comes to other people, and while she is a bit nervous, she is also somewhat excited to feel the thrill of battle for the first time. She is a lot different than she was back on Earth, but she has no reason to hide it because Usado has already accepted her and all her weirdness. Kazuki missed that portion of character development, so he'd love to hear about it later, but as for right now, they have to focus on the battle ahead. Just then, the two feel something coming from the wastelands, so they prepare themselves to begin the fight. The demon army is now in full view, so the mages begin casting several volleys of light magic at them to give Kazuki and Inumaki the chance to get in close. They'll be spearheading the attack, so there's no room for hesitation. However, after their magic attacks landed, it was revealed that the army they saw was nothing more than an illusion. This poses a problem since if that was an illusion, then the enemy could pounce on them at any moment. Sigillus looks over and spots the army coming from the southwest, so he calls for his army to reposition themselves to face them. Meanwhile, Rose gives her rescue squad their orders for the battle. Everyone who is dressed in black is tasked with running out onto the battlefield and bringing any injured soldiers back from the front lines. Orga and Ururu in gray will stay here and heal any soldiers that get brought back. Since they lack any combat ability, they will be guarded by Iruku over here. But if things get really bad, Rose instructs them to run away. As for Usado, he will head out into the battlefield with Rose once the injuries begin to escalate. But until then, he will stay here as well heal those who are brought back. Now that everyone knows their roles for the battle, Rose orders them all to get to their posts and prepare. Usado is worried about Kazuki and Inumaki out on the battlefield, and it's normal for him to be worried. But Yumuru reminds him that he will be heading out onto the battlefield as well, so he needs to worry about his own safety. Moments later, the first set of injured people are returned to the tent. Surprisingly, Usado and Ururu, since they didn't think it would happen so soon. Rose reminds them that this is war, so the injured will be coming by the dozen almost immediately. Husato begins healing one of the injured soldiers, but as he rolls her over, he can tell that the injury is really bad. His hands begin to shake from the shock of seeing the wound, but he needs to focus on healing, otherwise she is going to die. As he heals her, she begins to mutter something about a giant snake out on the battlefield, reminding Usato of the one he fought a while back. The demon army may have created another one, but he won't know for sure until he sees the war zone himself. Speaking of which, the soldiers are getting absolutely demolished by the demon's snake monster, while the Black Knight stands off in the distance and watches, thinking humans are really weak creatures. Just then, he gets snuck up on by a random soldier who manages to stab him through the back. For a second, the soldier thought he had won, but the Black Knight still stood there unfazed, and moments later, the soldiers had the same damage for the wound inflicted on him. He doesn't understand what happened, but he is determined to make it back to camp so he can inform all the others about this demon knight. Unfortunately, he mentioned his plans out loud, so the Dark Knight was about to finish him off right then and there. Luckily, 2 stinky water balloons were thrown, and while he was distracted, the soldiers got grabbed by someone from the rescue squad and was being taken away. The Dark Knight isn't sure what to make of the situation, but he remembers that Emilia has mentioned something about humans who kidnap dying soldiers from the battlefield. He finds it pretty interesting, so he hopes the humans can continue doing things that will entertain him a little. And speaking of entertainment, the knight notices sparks of lightning coming from Inumaki on the other side of the battlefield, so he heads over to check it out. Back at camp, the number of injuries have been steadily increasing, so Rose thinks it is about time that she and Usato head out onto the field. She asks if Usato is ready to go, and most certainly is, so she leaves things in the tent up to Ururu and Orga while she and Usato are gone. As she leaves, she asks Iruku to make sure the 2 of them are kept safe inside the tent, which she swears to ensure no matter what. With their safety guaranteed, Rose heads out with Usato, and while they are running, she talks to him about something she heard from an injured soldier. There is a demon out there with black armor who seems to use some really dangerous magic, so we should be careful of him. Hearing about the Black Knight, Usato remembers the premonition he had received of a Black Knight killing Kazuki and Inumaki, and that leaves him a bit shaken. Rose walks over to ask if everything is alright, but Usato says he's fine. Rose takes the opportunity to give him some advice and asks if he really won't kill anyone during the war. Usato doesn't plan on doing so since his role is to save people, but things don't always go the way you plan, so he may find himself in a situation where he needs to kill in order to survive at some point. And if that time comes, she wants him to be prepared, so she shares a special technique she developed for someone like him to take someone out. Usato takes her advice and thanks her for her help. She then says it's best if they split up, so Usato will head over to the right while she goes left. As Usato makes his way into the chaos of the battlefield, he is shocked by the brutality he witnesses. Still, his job takes precedence, so as he sees a demon about to kill one of the soldiers, he rushes in and grabs the guy while also dodging attacks as he escapes. Rose does the same thing on her end, only she doesn't bother with dodging the attacks and just stomps the demon's face in. Usato has just finished healing the injured soldier and tells him to rest a bit before rejoining the battle. He then runs off to go help more injured people on the field. On Inumaki's end, she has just taken out a whole squadron of demons almost single-handedly, and she is thanked for her help in the battle. She tells the commander to get the injured troops back to the rear so they can be healed, but she'll keep pressing forward. She takes a moment to look at the damage she has done to the demon army, but for some reason, she isn't as enthusiastic about it as she was earlier. Kazuki comes over to ask her how she is doing, and she says she is perfectly fine. They still got a long way to go before they reach the enemy stronghold, so she doesn't have time to slow down. Kazuki tells her about a snake monster he heard was let loose on the battlefield, but unfortunately, they do not have time to go handle it since their main objective is to reach a demon stronghold. Inumaki agrees with him, but before they can head for the stronghold, they find themselves cornered by the Dark Knight. They don't know who he is, but they can tell that he is no ordinary demon. The soldiers are quaking at his mere presence, so Inumaki tries to warn them to keep their composure and avoid engaging recklessly. Unfortunately, they were too jumpy and attacked Black Knight and his squad. They manage to stab him through the chest, but Inumaki doesn't understand why the Black Knight would let them do so without a fight. Black Knight knocks them away, and moments later, the damage they had done to him was reflected back at them, leading to several abdominal stab wounds. Kazuki tries to use his light magic to fight back, but Inumaki stops him because she has a bad feeling about this. The light attack just barely scrapes the Black Knight, but he still isn't fazed by it. Kazuki asks why she stopped him, so she explains that she thinks Black Knight is using some sort of reflection magic, so any damage they do to him will be reflected back onto them. And her theory is proved right as Kazuki's shoulder begins bleeding from the wound he had given Black Knight. Black Knight is impressed by how quickly Inumaki managed to figure out the trick to the armor, but now that she knows his power, he can't let them leave alive. The two of them seem to be strong, so he's going to enjoy watching them struggle as he kills them. Usato is still out running in the field when he suddenly starts getting visions of the future again. It is incredibly painful, but he can't heal himself, so he wonders if this means something bad happened to his friends. He isn't able to run as effectively anymore, so he nearly gets caught lacking by a demon. He's able to dodge out of the way, but still can't move much afterwards. Luckily, he gets saved by the guy whom he had helped earlier, and once he gets back to his feet, he asks for directions on where to find the two heroes so he can go help them. The soldier tells him that they should be in the front, so he runs off to aid them. Meanwhile, Kazuki and Inumeki are wondering what to do about the demon in front of them, so Inumeki proposes a plan of action. Kazuki believes it to be too dangerous to attempt, but it's not like they have many other options. Once their strategy meeting is complete, Black Knight attacks them with his tendrils, so they dash forward and Inumeki initiates the plan by blasting a dust cloud in front of the knight. Now with his vision obscured, Inumeki and Kazuki launch a series of light cuts all over his body to test the limits of his reflection magic. Unfortunately, he was still able to reflect the damage back at them despite not being able to see it happen. However, one cut on his back wasn't reflected, so she wants to try one more thing. Kazuki is skeptical, but he goes along with her plan anyway. Inumeki uses her magic to increase her movement speed greatly, while Kazuki uses his light magic to blind Black Knight. Her bet was if Black Knight can't sense the attack coming, then maybe he can't use Reflect on the attacker. She stabs him through the throat, and it looks like it may actually be working since he seems to be struggling. She tells Kazuki to take the opportunity to strike while he's incapacitated, but then Black Knight reveals that he was just faking it the entire time. He reflects the damage Inumeki did, and she starts coughing up blood, but Kazuki has it worse since his guts have been impaled. Black Knight does need to know where the attack is coming from to be able to reflect it, and he can choose when he wants to reflect damage as well, which is why he left that wound on his back just to mess with them. Now, both the human heroes have essentially been doomed to death. Usato is still making his way to their location, but it looks like he may have been too late to save them. This was the end of episode 10. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.